welcome to this pod vid on dice. Dice, we love them, don't we? No matter how many we've got, we always want some more, and we always see something that's the right colour or the right size or slightly strange, and we think, oh, love that. Particularly as somebody who puts rules and mechanisms together, I'm always on the lookout for crazy dice and wondering, oh, it'd be great to use those, and then realise I'm probably the only person in the world with a set of these dice, so they're probably not worth using at all. But anyway, here we go. Heroes all, fight your own battles, fight your own wars. What dice do you actually need? Well, of course, your originals, bog standard D6s. These coloured ones I bought as part of a game out in New Zealand. I'm not quite sure what the game was now, but they're nice and chunky, about ½ square, feel good in the hand. And of course, you've got mauves and pinks and yellows and whites, and you can apply those for different combatants. I've also got a load of these tiny small ones. These came from Games Workshop, and they used to sell those little dice cubes, D6. They might still sell them. Essentially, they are whites and oranges. I think that's the only two colours they came in, but a great way of buying 36 dice at once. I'm a lover of wooden dice. I don't know why. I've got quite a few wooden dice. They tend to remind me of my childhood when we didn't have many plastic dice. They were all wooden. So loads of wooden dice. And they're the D6s. We all love D6s. Another common type that we all tend to use are the D10s. Now, they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes these days, and we've all got a whole bunch of them. So D10s, very useful. The slight variation on those, of course, are the percentage dice. I don't think there's that many usages for percentages in fight your own battles, fight your own wars. But if you've got two different coloured D10, then you've got a percentage dice anyway. So don't get excited if you haven't got any percentage. D10s will do you just as good. Now, one of the key dice for fight your own battles are the D3s. There's an awful lot of use in fight your own battles and fight your own wars for D3. And these are traditional D3s where you've got, in fact, it's a 6-sided dice, and they're numbered 1, 1, 2, 2 and 3, 3. Now, if you haven't got any of these, it's not the end of the world, because you can use a D6, and 1 and 2 can equal 1, and 3 and 4 can equal 2, and 5 and 6 can equal 3. But it's fun to have some D3s. They're used for what's called the order dice in fight your own battles, and they're used for what called daily dice in fight your own wars. Now, I've also got some of these. These are a less traditional shape. They're a kind of handbag shape, really. Don't quite know how to describe them. And they're great, except they are quite small. I find them quite difficult to pick up, and I find the numbers quite difficult to read. I've got some green ones like this, and I've got some blue ones. I can't say I'm in love with either of them. I do use them, but I much prefer the traditional 6-sided D3. Now, another useful dice to have in your toolbox are some D averages. Again, these are 6-sided. They're numbered 2, 3, 3, 4, 4 and 5. So you don't get a 1, you don't get a 6, but you get more of a concentration of those numbers in the middle. And they're great for selecting something where you want an ordinary result. Like, for argument's sake, the ranking of an officer. You'd expect them to be more 3s and 4s than you would 2s and 5s. So D average, always a useful thing to have. Now, something I use for my weather is this compass dice. It's actually a D8, 8-sided, but it's marked up north, south, east, west, and it just gives you the ability to set your weather, wind direction in particular, from a particular direction, and I find this quite a useful little dice. And then there's all that weird stuff that we've accumulated and acquired, and we're never quite sure what we're going to use it for, but we love it anyway. So we've got things like D8s and D12s and D20s and D24s, and artillery dice, and something else we've got lots of from various games that we've played, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and bang, or something like of that sort of nature. Don't use many of those, or any of those, in fight your own battles and fight your own wars. But we still love them, don't we? And if you want to use the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bang instead of 1 to 6 when you're shooting your weapons, feel free to do so. Don't feel constricted. If you want to have some fun with it, go ahead and have some fun. The last thing I would mention is that when you're throwing dice on your Wargames table, either go for a dice tray, the sort of 6-inch square thing that you can throw your dice into so they're not all over the table knocking things down, or go for a dice tower. There's plenty of videos on YouTube of how to build dice towers. I've built a load in card. You can build them in wood. You can make them as fancy as you like, but a dice tower or a dice tray, much more neat and tidy than chucking dice all around the table and all over the floor. Now, in various wargame books over the years, there's always been a chapter turn up called Doing Without Dice, and it talks about using cards or other kind of random methods, you know, asking your mum to give me a number between 1 to 10 and that kind of stuff. And some of that works and some of that's a bit cheesy, but I found a little while ago, I was doing a lot of travelling around on trains, and it was very difficult to carry a pack of cards or some dice in my pocket, or ask my mum while I was doing it. So I came up with this idea of doing without dice, and it's quite a simple thing. You have 2 sheets. You have one sheet which is a random set of numbers from 1 to 100, and then you have another sheet which is just a random set of numbers for 1 to 6 for your D6s, or 1 to 4 for your D4s, or 1 to 10 for your D10s, or whatever it happens to be. And that's what you carry around. And before you leave home, if you know you're going to do some stuff on the train, and particularly if it's campaign admin, that kind of stuff, then all you do is you throw your percentage dice, and it says, okay, you end up with, let's say I throw 35 on the percentage dice. Number 35 on the first sheet, the index sheet, will give you a number, and that number might be 10. Because it's random 1 to 100. So you go on your D6 page and you start with the 10th random number. So every time you want a D6, you start by throwing the 10th, then the 11th, and then the 12th, and so on. And so you can work through and you can do your admin, particularly if you're setting up a campaign day with things like logistics and all that other sort of stuff, weather. You can do all that on the train simply by referring to these sheets. One little thing though, that if you look up your sheet and it says you've just thrown a 1 and you're allowed to re-roll, and you see the number next to it is a 6, you think, oh, I'm going to re-roll. No, you can't do that. What you do is you have in your scribbled in the margin of your index sheet, you have a sort of standby. So you either have a second index sheet number, or you simply take the next index sheet number. So we said we were going to use number 10. The next one on the index sheet might be 77. So you then take the 77th number on your D6 sheet, and that becomes your re-roll, and then you go back to the 11th and the 12th and so on. Sounds more complicated than it is actually. It's easier to do than to explain. I might do a little mini video on that. I've been rambling on for a couple of minutes about it here. I might do a separate, very mini video under game hints, which is one of the things I've got in mind to do. So I'll throw it in there and you can see what I've been talking about. The other thing which I would strongly recommend that you have a good look at, I mean, you can go into whatever depth you want, but do have a look at, and that is understanding probability. Now clearly if you throw a d6, you've got equal probability of getting a number from 1 to 6. If you throw 2 d6 and write down all the variations that you can get, you'll notice that you can score 2, but you can only get that one way, and you can get 12, but you can only get that one way, 2 6s. But if you look at the number 7, you can get that a whole bunch of ways. 1 and 6, 2 and 5, 3 and 4, 4 and 3, 2 and 5, 6 and 1. So if you look at the distribution of the results, you'll see it's what's called a bell curve. So the middle numbers are far more likely to happen than the numbers on the outside. And if you are writing mechanisms and rules, or you want to tweak the rules that you see in Heroes All or Fight Your Own Battles or Fight Your Own Wars, do bear in mind that there is this bell curve shape of distribution of results, and you would expect most of the results to come in the middle. And what I've done is I've done a lot of these tables looking at 2d6, 3d6, 2d10s, finding out what these bell curves look like, and also combining dice. So you'll see in some of the rules, particularly in Fight Your Own Wars, you throw a d10 and a d6. Now that's an interesting combination because you've got unequal dice. So the bell curve doesn't come out in the middle, it comes out kind of slewed to the right hand side because the d10 does tend to overpower the d6. But it's interesting to understand and have a look at probability. It helps you understand really what the rules are trying to get at, and perhaps helps you to appreciate the sort of results that you're looking for when you throw your dice. Well, I'm not going to say any more about our little favourite cubes. We all love dice, we've all got millions, we've all got too many, but they are so useful to the game. And once you've got your collection of D6s and D3s and D10s, that's probably all you're going to need to get you started in Heroes All and fight your own wars. There is, in the books, there is a bit at the front as to all the dice you're likely to need. They're all available online or from your local Dungeons and Dragons shop or something of that ilk if you've got one handy. Always be on the lookout for dice. You can buy cheap dice in children's toy shops and they're absolutely fine. You don't need what are called casino dice, which are perfectly balanced. We don't need to go to that length. We can just use ordinary little cubes and love playing with them. That's all for now. We're back to doing some proper wargaming next. I'll see you soon. Look, you know how this works. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and when more stuff arrives, you'll be the first to know.